I had a disagreement with a friend a few years ago, and when we came back together, we asked each other to talk about what was important in our lives. This friend shared with me that her whole life is built around introducing people to Jesus. Now, I've known this woman for over 22 years, and yet how she described her purpose on that day stuck with me. She was clear and she was adamant. I was pierced in my heart, and it made me think about my own life. I realized that for years, and I mean years, my job was my focus. My work was a God. I realized that I wasn't thinking much at that time about discipleship, but that's the whole purpose of Christianity. I share this story in the context of the missionaries who were unalived in Haiti. I send my condolences to their parents and their loved ones. I just can't imagine the pain and the anger and the confusion that they must be feeling. I can't imagine the heartbreak that their entire community must be feeling. And so I'm just sending the deepest of prayers to them and to also to the region, to Haiti. Davy Lloyd grew up in Haiti. As I was doing research, I learned that he grew up in Haiti. His family opened their ministry in 2000, and he spent a lot of time there. Media reports also note that he had a heart for the people of Haiti. So this wasn't a place that he would helicopter in. They were rooted there. And I believe I also saw something that whenever he began to date a woman, he would make it clear to them that he was going to spend his life in Haiti. And if that was going to be a problem for them, they probably were not going to work. So he had a clarity of mind. I think in times like this, it's pretty frustrating to look on social media. On the one hand, you look because you want information, but there are a range of negative comments from look how the people of Haiti repaid them to they never should have gone over there. What were they thinking? And to me, these comments miss the point. If these people were truly Christians and were called to do their work or to do this work, their reward is in heaven. And we don't get to tell God how to carry out his plan, right? Um, in Psalms 116 and 15, it says, who has known the mind of Christ or who has been his counselor? So certainly from a human and a natural lens, this is traumatic. But if these people were Christians and they were doing what they were called to do and what was, what God put in their heart to do, then we're not going to understand it. I think that sometimes, as I think about these comments that I've seen on social media, I think that sometimes people try to distance themselves by finding fault. And I think that that's a human impulse that's rooted in our own self-protection. If we think that we could never do something, then we feel like, okay, well, I don't have to fear it. I would never put myself in this situation. But again, I think that's just a way to lessen our own ability to connect with the story and to feel bad. But I say again that these people appear to be doing God's work. And media reports say that they were offered a chance to leave a few days prior to when they were unalived, but they feared for the children who they were caring for. And so they wanted to stay there to take care of the children. That's sacrifice. Now, I am not naive. I understand that missionaries don't always have a good reputation. I understand that due to colonization and misuse of power and abuse, the people don't always think favorably about missionaries. I understand that, given the atrocities visited upon Native and Indigenous people, where missionaries and others tried to stamp out their religion, and they did so through brutality and cruelty. I understand that some people believe that mission trips can do more harm and good than good, and that the money could be sent to the regions instead of sending people who don't know the culture. I get all that. And still, my heart breaks for these young people. They were so young. I think there's another reason that this hits home. First, I have friends and I've met a lot of people from Haiti. I've also been part of churches that had orphanages in Haiti. Um, Years ago, I belonged to a church, and that church, I don't know if they still have it, but they had a huge orphanage in Haiti, and it grew over time. And they regularly sent people from the church to the orphanage to help care for the children. I'm also concerned about the people of Haiti, given the destabilization in the region, but also given how incidents like this provide fodder for people to ignore the humanitarian crisis there. I think another reason that this story hits home is I know so many people who've taken mission trips, not just to Haiti, but across the world. In fact, my own church has missionaries all over the world, including right here in the United States. I'm also affiliated with an organization that has, missionary service is a huge part of what they do, and that's United Women in Faith. And so every once in a while, through my work with that organization, I have interviewed missionaries from the field, from different parts of Africa. And these are people who live in those communities and are from those communities, but they're doing missionary work. And I've interviewed them on the podcast. And that podcast is United Women in Faith's Faith Talks podcast. So I have come across a lot of people, and I've known of a lot of different ministries that sent missionaries. And so I think, man, this could be any of the people who I knew or who I went to church with. And by the way, I don't know how to get an official count of all the missionaries who have been unalived as they've been serving in different parts of the world. But now that this story has broken, I'm curious. There are some people who will look to the youth of Natalie and David Lloyd, and there are some people who will look at Jude Montis, who appear to be such a family man, and they will lament, that they passed away young. There are other people who will lament over where they were unalived, and some people will look at this and say, okay, well, the Haitians treated them terribly. And despite all of this, there's a part of me that feels that somewhere in heaven, angels must be celebrating. These young people and their Haitian tour guide appear to have a devotion to ministry and to missionary work. Now, I don't know what was in their hearts, and I know nothing of their character, but if they were walking with God, as it appears they were, I believe that they are resting in the arms of God, and I believe that they will hear, "Well done, good and faithful servants." It's hard to see people who appear to be good people. It's hard to see bad things happen to them. And then I remind myself that our faith cost the early Christians something. If you think about some of the disciples and some of the apostles, I'm thinking about Stephen, Clement, Philip, Thomas, James, Simon Peter, and the list goes on. They didn't depart this life through pleasantries. I mean, they suffered. They suffered greatly. And so I remind myself that in the United States, we're not used to seeing Christians truly suffering for the faith. We're not used to seeing sacrifice on this level. But our faith is not all roses and sunshine. And I'm not saying that all of the early Christians were unalived in horrific means. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind, and there were chariots of fire waiting for him. But my point is that we will not escape this life without some trials and without some suffering. My point is also is that for people who have walked in service and love and devotion and obedience to their calling, there must be a great reward for them. The way that our human hearts look at this situation may not be consistent with how God views this situation. By the way, earlier I said that Psalms 116 and 15 said, who has been God's counselor, like who's known the mind of God and who has been his counselor. That's a different scriptural reference that I'll give to you in a second. The one from Psalms 116 and 15 is precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints. And now that's not going to allay the tremendous fear and the grief and the dread of the family, but I'm praying for them. I'm just saying that's a scripture that I turn to when I think about, things that I can't understand. As I, reflect on this story, I'm praying personally for the family, but also for greater boldness, greater courage, and also a willingness to go when God says go. I want to give you this scripture that I mentioned earlier. So it was actually Romans 11:34 through 36. And it says, "Who has known the mind of the Lord, or who has been able to give him advice? Who has been his counselor?" So I mentioned that earlier just to say again that, we don't know why certain things happen. And God doesn't have to tell us what he's going to do before he does it, right? So I just share that for what it's worth. But, for those of you who've not already subscribed, if my commentary and my views align with you and your worldview, or if you just want to be challenged, please feel free to subscribe, like, and share.